The most common spinal complaint that we deal with on a regular basis is a joint here called the sacroiliac joint, and it's where this bone called the ilium joins a bone here called the sacrum. And once this displaces, it makes these postural muscles here called the psoas and this muscle here called the piriformis to move into adaptation, but it puts a rotary torque on the pelvis and stops it from going back into alignment. So in my 50-year career, it started off with learning deep remedial massage and then learning osteopathic techniques to actually align this, but it was using force. After many years of adjusting, I learned another chiropractic method, which was called sacro-occipital technique, which involved using wedge blocks and placing them strategically under the ilium bone and what we call the ischium bone, depending on what findings the pelvis needed to realign to, and that would gently realign it without force, but also dynamically balance both sides at once. Then I learned from another man called Dr. Roquist a spinal touch approach, which basically used the sacrum, which is basically like a rudder to the spine, and he would use that with various reflexes coming up here on the energy channels that would start to align the spine. And this again was a painless soft tissue manipulation, if you like, if you want to use the word manipulation. And all of that worked me towards using less force, less injurious to the body, faster recovery and better maintenance. And then 20 years ago, I started to study Dr. Stephen Levin's concept of biotensegrity, which has now become an accepted science and actually underpins our Amatsu orthopathic course. And the flotation concept of tensegrity means that the body is actually in flotation, but against gravity we don't get this concept. But if you look at the pelvis working, as we're walking, this bone is moving forward and this one back in sort of counter torque, and the spine rotates accordingly in the upright position. So it's something along the lines of this. If we look at this as being the legs and this as being the pelvis, when we're walking, we're counter torquing and counterbalancing all of the time. The problem is when the sacrum slips, this misalignment has to be spasmed, protected with muscles, and we can no longer walk in this contralateral alignment. So then you've got to break that fixation, usually with force, or using some of the gentle alignment methods. Now, even with gentle alignment methods, you're still working very locally, and the spine is basically what we call a kinematic chain. And tensegrity, this would represent that kinematic chain. Now, what happens with this is, if the neck moves, the sacrum also follows, and we get a counterbalancing all the way through the spine. So as we're walking, the spine is counter-rotating in those directions all of the time. Now, with the spinal fixation, one part of this is not working. So it's a bit like having a link on a chain not operating properly, and eventually it will cause a problem to the whole of the chain. And so adjusting locally doesn't achieve the alignment of the whole. And so now we're looking at flotation in the spine. What I found as my practice was building, obviously you get referrals, well not referrals, you get people who tried other practitioners, and I would get them in. And when I was using manipulation, I was competing against people who manipulated. When I was using the sacro-occipital blocks, it was a different concept, and I was getting much better results because there was more permanent correction. So when I say permanent, nothing's permanent until we injure ourselves again. But with the sacroiliac adjustments, sometimes it might only hold a week, sometimes even a day. And I know of many practitioners who would manipulate their clients on a weekly basis using a sacroiliac adjustment. Many chiropractors work in this way on a regular basis. And to me, that wasn't fixing the globality of the body, and you couldn't give guidance to the person as to what was the cause and how to maintain and rehabilitate themselves in a much better way. And what you find is also there's evidence that if you constantly adjust these joints, you get what we call morphic changes, which are sort of arthritic changes to the joint over a period of time, and you can also slacken the ligaments. So in actual fact, to me, I saw it as being a detriment to continually manipulate something over a long period of time. My mentor in Japan, Dr. Masaaki Hatsumi, he as a martial artist was using again a very similar concept that could be explained through tensegrity, in that he could overcome strength and non-compliance in a person, an opponent, with very gentle techniques of body movement and alignment. And this intrigued me, and then he went on to teach me the techniques which are now called Amatsu orthopath. Over many years he taught us these concepts, and I've put this into the practice, and now what we're doing is a very gentle alignment of globally of the body. So this is a standard spinal adjustment for the sacroiliac joint or the lower lumbars. So you rotate the shoulder away from the spine, you get ligamentous lock, and you get what we call facet articulation lock, so that everything's where you want it to be, very precise, and then you make a thrust through the sacroiliac joint to release the fixation. but I'm not going to adjust it because I found much better ways of doing this now. So when we're looking at the need for a manipulation, basically the concept is, or the belief is, that you're breaking a fixation between two bones that have become stuck. And it's took me many years, over the 50 years of practice that I've been working, I've found different ways. I've gone through different concepts of using manipulation, using massage, using spinal realignment, using sacral adjustments from different chiropractors, using blocking techniques. And now I've come to the concept through the study of biotensegrity, which is looking at the structural integrity of the body as being suspensory rather than weight bearing on the joints. Now with that belief system, all you're looking for is removing the inhibitors, or the reasons why the body's protecting itself and can't go back into correction. If you can release those inhibiting factors or release that muscle spasm, then the body can actually realign itself. And using gentle procedures, we can very, very easily align the spine. And my clients have found much better benefits. I'm looking after many of them over 40 years, maintaining them into old age and getting rid of inflammation, pain, lots of concepts, more joint mobility. And this is what we want to teach. So our whole basic concept of what we teach now is to teach this biodynamical or tensegral approach. So this represents each individual vertebra, which is each individual bone here. And these are what we call the transverse processes, the bony parts that stick out for the muscular and ligamentous attachments to allow movement and support and maintenance of the spine to be maintained. Now, if we twist the spine out of alignment, that's going to put pressure on nerves and cause muscles to spasm. And this is basically what drives us to our osteopath or chiropractor or therapist. And so it's that pressure that causes the problem, even operations to relieve the pressure on the spine. Now, if you look at the whole mechanism as a whole, then you don't fix one link in the chain, you've got to fix the chain. And the biotensegrous approach realigns the whole body naturally, using its own natural reflexes to bring it back into alignment, safely, comfortably and painlessly. The most common problem we work with every day is sciatica and low back complaints. People sitting in cars too long, people sitting at desks, all sorts of occupational strains are now causing people to have lots of back pains. And that's the biggest thing that drives people through our doors. And this very, very quickly realigns your spine, takes away the pain, inflammation, and is very safe and effective. So daily in our practices, we see things like headaches, it can be gastric complaints, inflammation, joint range problems, musculoskeletal aches and pains. And this is what we're working with all day long. And this approach globally works with all of those conditions. We're releasing organ fascia, we're releasing our diaphragms, we're releasing muscle pulls, we're aligning the joints, and basically allowing the body to be uprightly competent again so that it can walk and move in space without pain or inflammation. So if you'd like to become a practitioner and have a busy, successful practice, simply click onto our website for more information, because we're enrolling right now.